They thought I was just an easy target.
A man who loved his classic car, too afraid to fight back. When the HOA president showed up with her clipboard and absurd rules declaring my father's Mustang was in violation, I just stood silent. When fake police officers arrived to seize the car right in front of my neighbors, I handed over the keys without a word. They thought I had surrendered. The biggest mistake they ever made. Virginia Hartwell didn't know that, after 20 years on the force, 8 years heading internal affairs, I'd seen every type of power abuser. And I knew exactly how to deal with them. Not with violence, not with threats, but with the one thing they feared most, the law itself. Let me know where you're watching from today. It started on a Saturday afternoon in late September. The kind of day when the sun hits just right, turning everything golden. I was in my driveway hood up on my 1969 Mustang, the blue paint gleaming under that perfect light. The V8 engine had just cooled down from a morning drive, and I was wiping my hands on an oil-stained rag when I heard it. The aggressive rumble of a BMW engine cuts through the quiet neighborhood. I glanced up. A black sedan rolled to a stop in front of my house, parking at an angle that blocked half my driveway. Deliberate. The door opened, and out stepped a woman in her early 50s. Blonde hair, pulled back tight, wearing a white pantsuit that screamed authority she probably didn't have. She held a leather folder against her chest like a shield. Virginia Hartwell. I'd seen her around the neighborhood always carrying that folder, always with that look on her face like she owned the place. Technically, as HOA board president, she thought she did. "Mr. Brennan," she called out, her heels clicking against the concrete as she approached. Her voice had that particular edge, the one who said she was used to people obeying without question. I straightened up, closed the hood gently, and turned to face her. "Afternoon," I said, keeping my tone neutral. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "We have a problem," she announced, flipping open her folder with a practiced flourish. "Your vehicle here, it's not acceptable. Section 7 clearly states no commercial vehicles in residential areas." I glanced at the Mustang, then back at her. "This is a personal vehicle, has been for 40 years. She pointed at a small decal on the rear window barely 3 inches wide, a logo from my buddy's restoration shop where we'd done some of the work. "That makes it commercial. Rules are rules, Mr. Brennan. I don't make exceptions just because someone thinks they're special." Her smile was thin, condescending. "I'm sure you understand." I took a slow breath. Noticed how she positioned herself, blocking my view of the street. Power play. Basic intimidation technique. "The car is privately owned, registered to me personally, and parked on my private property," I replied calmly. "Not in violation of any city ordinance." Her expression hardened. She wasn't used to pushback. "City ordinances don't concern me. HOA bylaws do." She pulled a pre-printed form from her folder and held it out. "This is your official notice. You have 72 hours to remove this vehicle or we'll be forced to take action. Oh, and you'll need to pay the violation fee. $850. I took the paper, scanned it. The fee breakdown was nonsense. Made up categories like processing administration and compliance review. Classic shakedown structure. I'd seen it before in fraud cases. Financial coercion disguised as legitimate fees. My jaw tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "What outstanding balance?" I asked. "These fees are effective immediately," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "They accumulate daily until resolved." So I'd act quickly if I were you. I folded the paper slowly, watching her watch me. Most people probably panicked at this point, wrote a check just to make her go away. "Ms. Hartwell," I said evenly, "the HOA doesn't have legal authority to seize private property based on arbitrary fees. If you believe otherwise, I'd appreciate seeing the statute that supports your claim." Her eyes narrowed. The smile vanished completely. "You don't want to make this difficult," she said, her voice dropping into something colder. "I know people, important people. One phone call and your life in this community becomes very uncomfortable. So here's my advice. Pay the fee, move the car, and we'll pretend this conversation never happened." There it was. The threat beneath the pantsuit and polite words. I'd heard versions of this 100 times in my career. Different faces, same playbook. Bullies always think they're the first to discover intimidation. I smiled. Not aggressive. Just enough to let her know she wasn't scaring me. "I'll review the notice," I said. "Have a good afternoon." She stared at me for a long moment, clearly trying to decide if I was worth more of her time right now. Then she turned sharply and marched back to her BMW. The engine roared louder than necessary, and she pulled away, leaving faint tire marks on the street, marking territory. I stood there for a moment holding that bogus notice, watching her car disappear around the corner. Then I turned back to the Mustang and ran my hand along the smooth curve of the hood. This car wasn't just metal and paint. It was the last thing my father gave me before he passed. We'd spent 3 years restoring it together, weekends in his garage, him teaching me about engines and integrity in equal measure. Take care of it, he'd said the day he handed me the keys right after I graduated from the academy. It'll remind you why you do this job. I pulled out my phone and took 3 quick photos, the Mustang from multiple angles, her tire marks still fresh on the pavement, and that tiny decal she'd used as justification. Evidence. Always start with evidence. Then I photographed every line of the violation notice, especially the fee breakdown. Numbers told stories if you knew how to read them. 72 hours, she'd said. I tucked the notice into my jacket pocket right next to the badge I'd carried for 2 decades. The small shield caught the afternoon light for just a second before disappearing into the fabric. Virginia Hartwell had no idea who she was dealing with. But something told me she wasn't done yet. People like her never were. They pushed until someone pushed back harder. I glanced at my watch. Saturday, 3:15 in the afternoon. 72 hours meant Tuesday evening. I gave it less than half that time before she made her next move. I didn't move the car. 72 hours came and went, and the Mustang stayed exactly where it belonged. Tuesday evening passed quietly. Wednesday, I went about my routine. By Thursday morning, I figured Virginia was planning her next move. Turns out I didn't have to wait long. 6:30 a.m. I was pouring coffee when I heard vehicles outside. Plural. I moved to the window. A dark SUV sat at the curb, engine running, not a standard patrol unit. The markings were close, but wrong. The light bar didn't match the Metro specs, door decals looked generic. 2 men stepped out wearing what was supposed to pass for police uniforms. Dark blue utility belts, radios. But the patches were off. Wrong font, wrong placement. I'd spent 20 years recognizing the real thing. This wasn't it. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera, and walked outside. The 2 men were already in my driveway. The taller one, mid-30s, had a cocky stride. His partner looked nervous, kept glancing back at the SUV. "Cole Brennan," the tall one called out. I stopped at my porch. "That's me." "We're here for the vehicle. Court order. Need you to hand over the keys." I kept my phone visible. "Orders from whom?" "Court order," he repeated, pulling a folded paper from his belt. He held it up but didn't let me touch it. From where I stood, the format looked wrong. No proper case number, no judge's signature in the right position. "I'd like to see that," I said calmly. He hesitated, then walked closer and handed it over. I unfolded it slowly. Fake. Completely fabricated. Wrong legal language, incorrect citation format, bad photocopy of a court seal. "This isn't legitimate," I said, looking up. "I need your badge numbers and the supervising officer's name." His expression shifted. Confidence cracked slightly. "We don't have time for this. Keys, now, or you're getting charged with obstruction." "Obstruction of what?" I asked quietly. "You're not law enforcement." "That uniform's fraudulent, this document's fake. So who sent you?" The nervous one stepped back. The tall one's jaw clenched. Before he could respond, another car pulled up. Virginia's black BMW. She stepped out, heels clicking, carrying her leather folder. She walked up my driveway like she owned it, positioning herself between me and the 2 fakes. "Mr. Brennan," she said smoothly, "I see you've met Officers Daniels and Koch. They're here on official business." I held up the fake order. "This is forgery." She smiled that condescending smile. "The HOA has full authority to enforce liens on properties with outstanding violations. Your vehicle represents a debt that's now grown to $1,200 with penalties. These officers are securing the asset until payment is rendered." Neighbors had come out onto porches now. Mrs. Patterson lives across the street. The young couple 2 doors down. Phones out recording. Good. Let them record. "You don't have the authority to seize private property," I said evenly, "and these men aren't officers." Virginia's smile widened. "Everything here is legal. Now cooperate or you'll be arrested and we'll tow it anyway. Your choice." The tall fake moved closer. hand on his empty holster. Intimidation posture. I looked at Virginia. The two men. My neighbors are watching. Sometimes you let people think they've won. Let them commit fully. All right, I said. I walked inside, grabbed the keys, and came back out. The tall fake held out his hand. I dropped the keys into his palm. I need copies of all documentation. Full names, badge numbers, storage location. Virginia pulled pre-printed forms from her folder. It'll be held at a secure facility. You'll receive an auction notice if payment isn't made within 10 days. $15,000 total including storage. 15,000. The number had jumped again. Classic pressure tactic. I need that in writing, I said. She handed over papers with a flourish. I photographed everything. Documents, both fakes from multiple angles, their faces, badges, and the SUV's plates. The tall one started to object. Virginia cut him off. Let him. It won't change anything. She turned to the neighbor's voice loud. This is what happens when people refuse to follow community rules. Let this be a lesson. No one is above our standards. Public humiliation. Establishing dominance. The two fakes climbed into the Mustang. The engine started that familiar V8 rumble. I watched them back out and head down the street, Virginia following in her BMW. Gone. Mrs. Patterson called over. Cole, are you okay? That didn't seem right. It wasn't, I said. But it will be. I walked inside and pulled out my phone. Scrolled to Captain James Morrison, Metro PD. My former partner now running criminal investigations. Hit dial. He answered on the second ring. Brennan. Been a while. Jim, I said. Need to report a crime. Impersonating an officer, extortion under color of law, and about 5 other felonies. You got time today? Pause. I'll make time. What happened? I'll explain in person, but Jim, this one's going to get interesting. I hung up and looked at the empty driveway. Virginia thought she'd won, thought she'd broken me in front of witnesses. She had no idea what she'd started. 24 hours later, I walked through the front doors of Metro Police headquarters. The building stood downtown, 10 stories of concrete and glass that had been my second home for 2 decades. I nodded at security, flashed my credentials, and headed for the elevators. 7th floor. The doors opened onto a corridor I knew by heart. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, the faint smell of coffee and paperwork. I turned right and stopped at a door with frosted glass. The nameplate read, Commander Cole Brennan, Head of Internal Affairs Division. I pushed through into the outer office. Detective Sarah Martinez looked up from her desk, eyebrows raised. Boss, didn't expect you in today. Thought you were on personal time. Change of plans, I said. Conference room, 10 minutes. Get Patterson and Williams. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. That kind of meeting. Got it. I walked into my office and closed the door. Set my bag down on the desk and stood there for a moment looking at the wall of commendations and case files. 20 years. 8 of them in this division investigating dirty cops, corrupt officials, and people who abused the badge. People who thought power made them untouchable. People exactly like Virginia Hartwell. I opened my bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were printed copies of everything from yesterday. Photos of the fake uniforms, close-ups of the badges, screenshots of the fraudulent court order, images of the SUV's license plates. The violation notices with their manufactured fees. I spread them across my desk like pieces of a puzzle. Because that's what this was. A pattern. And patterns always told a story if you knew how to read them. My phone buzzed. Text from Martinez. Ready when you are. I gathered the folder and headed to the conference room. Martinez, Patterson, and Williams were already there, coffee in hand. All 3 were senior detectives, people I'd worked with for years. People I trusted. Morning, I said, closing the door. Thanks for coming in on short notice. Patterson, a veteran investigator in his late 40s, leaned back in his chair. Martinez said it was important. What have we got? I laid the photos out on the table. Fake police impersonation, extortion under color of law, possibly organized fraud. Williams, younger but sharp, whistled low. That's bold. Where'd this happen? My driveway, I said. Dead silence. All 3 of them stared at me. Martinez spoke first. Someone sent fake cops to your house to seize my car under the pretense of an HOA violation and a fraudulent court order. I walked them through it. Saturday's confrontation with Virginia. The bogus violation notice. Thursday morning's escalation with the two fake officers. The manufactured fees kept climbing, the public humiliation in front of my neighbors. When I finished, Patterson was shaking his head. Unbelievable. They had no idea who they were dealing with. That's the point, I said. They thought I was just another target, someone who'd pay to make the problem go away. I tapped the photo of the fake badges. But this isn't about me. This is bigger. Martinez picked up one of the images. You think they've done this before? I know they have, I said. I pulled out another document from my folder, a list I'd compiled late last night after calling in a favor from county records. 7 lawsuits have been filed against Virginia Hartwell and the HOA in the past 5 years. All settled quietly, all involving property disputes or excessive fees. No criminal charges ever filed. Williams scanned the list. 7 people who probably didn't know they could fight back. Exactly, I said. And there's more. I started digging into the financials. The HOA's annual reports show $200,000 unaccounted for over the past 3 years. Money coming in from violation fees and administrative costs that don't match any legitimate expenses. Patterson sat forward. Embezzlement, or money laundering, Martinez added, using the HOA as a front. I nodded. I need to know more, starting with these 2. I pointed to the photos of the fake cops. Run facial recognition, check for priors, and trace that SUV. It was a rental, but someone paid for it. Williams was already pulling out his laptop. On it. What about the woman? Martinez asked. Virginia Hartwell. She's the HOA board president. 5 years in that position. Owns 3 properties in the neighborhood. I pulled up a file on my phone and projected it onto the conference room screen. Virginia's face appeared pulled from public records. Below it, property records, business registrations, and court filings. She also operates an LLC called Hartwell Properties. Purchased 4 homes in the neighborhood in the past 2 years, all at below-market prices. All from residents who suddenly had HOA violations they couldn't afford to fight. Martinez crossed her arms. So she manufactures violations, pressures people to sell cheap, then flips the properties for profit. That's the theory, I said. But there's someone else involved. I clicked to the next slide. A younger man's face appeared. Early 20s, cocky expression. Dylan Hartwell, her son. 25 years old, unemployed with multiple arrests for auto theft. Currently on probation. Patterson frowned. Auto theft. And she just seized your classic Mustang. Noticed that too, I said quietly. I pulled up Dylan's social media profile, archived screenshots I'd captured before he could delete them. Posts from 6 months ago showing him at car shows, comments about wanting a vintage Mustang. One post in particular, "One day I'll own one of these beauties, whatever it takes." The room went quiet. Williams looked up from his laptop. Boss, I've got a hit on the SUV. Rented from Enterprise 3 days ago, paid for by a business account registered to Hartwell Properties. There it is, Martinez said. Direct connection. What about the fake cops? Patterson asked. Williams typed rapidly. Still running facial rec, but I pulled the names they used. Daniels and Koch. Both are real Metro officers, but neither was on duty Thursday morning. Someone used their names. Identity theft on top of impersonation, I said. This keeps getting better. I turned back to the screen looking at Dylan's photo. I need to know where my car is. Odds are it's at a location connected to Dylan. A garage storage unit somewhere he thinks is safe. Martinez stood up. I'll start pulling property records for any addresses linked to him or his mother. Storage facilities, leased spaces, anything. Patterson Williams, keep digging into the financials, I said. Follow the money. If she's been running this scheme for 5 years, there's a trail. Patterson nodded. We'll find it. I gathered the photos back into my folder. One more thing. We do this by the book. Every step documented, every piece of evidence legally obtained. When we take this to the DA, it needs to be airtight. Always is with you, boss, Martinez said with a slight smile. I looked at the 3 of them. Good people. People who believed in the same thing I did. The system worked when good people used it right. Let's get to work, I said. As they filed out, I stayed behind for a moment, looked at Virginia's face still projected on the screen. She thought she'd won. Thought she'd humiliated me, stolen my father's car, and gotten away with it. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd picked the wrong target. And now every move she'd made, every threat she'd issued, every fraudulent document she'd created was about to become evidence in a case she couldn't buy or bully her way out of. I grabbed my coffee and headed back to my office. Time to build the case. By Friday afternoon, I had enough information to make my first move. Not as a cop, as a citizen, because that distinction mattered. Virginia thought she was dealing with a pushover neighbor. Let her keep thinking that a little longer. I sat in a law office downtown, across the desk from Robert Hayes, one of the best civil attorneys in the state. He'd reviewed everything I brought him, his expression growing darker with each page. "This is textbook extortion," he said, finally tapping the fake court order. "And the impersonation charge is federal. You know that." "I do," I said. "But right now I need the civil angle. Lawsuit against Virginia Hartwell personally and the HOA as an entity. Unlawful seizure, defamation, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress." Robert nodded, already making notes. "We'll file Monday morning. I'll also submit a public records request to the HOA. Under state law, they're required to provide bylaws, meeting minutes from the past 5 years, complete financial records, and a list of all violation notices issued. They have 10 business days to comply. They won't want to hand that over," I said. "They don't have a choice. And if they refuse, we get a court order. Either way, we see what they've been hiding." I signed the retainer agreement and left his office with a copy of the complaint. Step 1, complete. Next was the car. I needed to know where it was. Back at headquarters, Martinez had news. She'd pulled property records for every address connected to Dylan Hartwell or his mother. Most were residential, but one stood out. A commercial garage registered under an LLC called D&V Holdings. The address was in an industrial area outside the city limits. "D&V," I said. "Dylan and Virginia." "That's my guess," Martinez replied. "LLC was formed 8 months ago. Only listed asset is that garage." "Let's take a look," I said. We drove out in an unmarked sedan. The garage sat at the end of a gravel road surrounded by empty lots and chain-link fencing. Single-story metal siding, 2 bay doors. No signs, no business name visible. Martinez parked across the street where we had a clear view. "Looks pretty quiet," she said. I pulled out a camera with a telephoto lens. We waited. 20 minutes later, a familiar car pulled up. Dylan's silver Acura. He climbed out, looked around nervously, then unlocked the side door and went inside. Through the gap before the door closed, I caught a glimpse of blue. Mustang blue. "Got you," I said quietly, snapping photos. Dylan emerged 15 minutes later carrying a toolbox. He loaded it into his trunk and drove off. I kept shooting. Once he was gone, Martinez ran the plate to confirm. "Registered to Dylan Hartwell. Home address matches his mother's." "He's working on something in there," I said. "Probably my car." "Want to get a warrant?" she asked. "Not yet. Need more for probable cause, but now we know where it is." We drove back to headquarters. I spent the rest of the afternoon reaching out to people quietly. Neighbors from my street who'd witnessed Thursday's incident. 3 of them agreed to provide written statements. Then I made another call. To George Callahan, the elderly man who lived 4 houses down from me. I'd seen him at HOA meetings before, always asking questions, always taking notes. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Mr. Callahan, this is Cole Brennan. We haven't formally met, but I live down the street." "I know who you are," he said, his voice cautious. "I saw what happened on Thursday. That wasn't right." "No, it wasn't. And I think you might have seen similar things before." Long pause. Then, "Why are you asking?" "Because I'm not the first person Virginia Hartwell has targeted, and I'd like to make sure I'm the last." Another pause. Longer this time. "Can you meet me somewhere private?" he asked. "My house tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. I'll be there." Saturday morning, I drove to George's house. He answered the door looking tired but determined. Led me into a small office crammed with filing cabinets. "I'm a retired accountant," he explained. "Old habit. I keep records of everything." He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick binder. Inside were spreadsheets, printed emails, and copies of violation notices. All meticulously organized, color-coded, and dated. 47 cases, he said quietly. Over 5 years. People who received bogus violations, excessive fees, and threats of legal action. Most paid because they were scared. A few tried to fight and got harassed until they moved or sold. Total estimated amount collected through fraudulent fees, $380,000. I stared at the numbers. You documented all of this. I tried reporting it to the city, the county, even the state attorney general. No one wanted to touch an HOA dispute. They said it was a civil matter. He looked at me. But you're going to do something about it, aren't you? Yes, I said. Can I get a copy of everything you have? He handed me a flash drive. Already prepared. I was hoping someone would finally care enough to act. I took the drive. Thank you, George. This changes everything. Back in my car, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Opened the files. Names, dates, amounts. A complete record of Virginia's scheme going back 5 years. Evidence of a pattern. Systematic fraud. I forwarded copies to Martinez and Williams, sent another to Robert Hayes. Then I sat back and looked at George's house. One person. Keeping records. Refusing to give up even when no one listened. That's all it took sometimes. One person who wouldn't let injustice become normal. My phone buzzed. Text from Martinez. Financial audit complete. Found the money. You're going to want to see this. I started the engine. The case was coming together. Piece by piece. Exactly the way it should. Monday morning, I walked into the conference room with 3 folders. Martinez, Patterson, Williams, and Captain Morrison were waiting. We've got a full pattern, I said, laying the folders on the table. This isn't just about my car. It's organized fraud. Patterson opened the first folder. George Callahan's documentation. 47 cases, spreadsheets, color-coded by year. $380,000 over 5 years, he said. Williams pulled up his laptop. Forensic accounting confirms it. The HOA's financial records show $200,000 unaccounted for. Money comes in as violation fees, administrative costs, and legal charges. None of it matches actual expenses. Morrison leaned forward. Where's it going? Multiple places, Williams said, clicking through bank records. Virginia maintains 3 accounts. Personal checking business account for Hartwell Properties and a third offshore in the Caymans registered to Meridian Holdings. Money laundering, Martinez said. I opened the second folder. Property records. Secondary scheme. Virginia's LLC purchased 7 properties in the neighborhood over 5 years, all from residents who suddenly had excessive violations they couldn't fight. Purchase prices are 30 to 40% below market. Patterson traced the timeline. She manufactures violations, harasses people into selling cheap buys through her LLC, and flips within 6 months at full value. Average profit per property, $120,000. $840,000 in real estate fraud, Morrison said. Combined with fee extortion, over $1.2 million total. The room went quiet. This was organized crime. I opened the third folder. Dylan's photograph on top. Dylan operates the garage holding my Mustang, but he's not just storing it. Williams pulled up surveillance photos from the weekend. We watched the location for 48 hours. Dylan visited 6 times. But look at this. The next photo showed a flatbed trailer with 2 classic cars. 1970 Chevelle and 67 Camaro. Both were reported stolen in the past 3 months. Both high-value classics. Martinez crossed her arms. He's running a theft operation. Using Virginia's HOA authority as cover, I said. The Mustang wasn't random. He's been targeting classic cars for months. Virginia identifies owners, creates false violations, and then they seize vehicles through fake enforcement. How many cars? Patterson asked. At least 5, confirmed, Williams said. All reported stolen, all owners in HOA neighborhoods. We're cross-referencing other jurisdictions. Morrison stood and walked to our evidence board. The flowchart showed money flowing from victims through the HOA into Virginia's accounts, then offshore. A second line showed stolen vehicles through Dylan's garage. This is federal, he said. Wire fraud, money laundering, interstate theft. FBI needs to be involved. Already contacted, I said. Agent Susan Aldridge, Economic Crimes Unit, reviews our files Wednesday. Local DA, Morrison asked. Robert Hayes flagged criminal elements for the prosecutor. They're waiting on our evidence package. Morrison nodded. Next move. I pulled out the fake court order. Identify the 2 fake cops. Williams ran facial recognition. 2 faces appeared on screen. Marcus Daniels and Kevin Koch both have priors. Daniels served 2 years for identity theft. Koch has assault and forgery arrests. Both are Dylan's known associates. They stole real officers' identities, Martinez said. Federal identity theft plus impersonation, I replied. They're looking at serious time. What about recovering the car? Morrison asked. We have enough for a search warrant, I said. Stolen vehicles on property Dylan's connection to prior thefts and photographic evidence. Judge Carmichael's reviewing the application today. When approved, we move fast, Morrison said. Secure location, recover vehicles, arrest Dylan. I nodded. Martinez leads the tactical. Patterson and Williams handle evidence collection. Catalog everything in that garage. What about Virginia? Martinez asked. She's the architect. We need her to make one more mistake, I said. I pulled out an invitation. Gold lettering on heavy cardstock. HOA's annual charity gala, 2 weeks from Saturday. Virginia's receiving a community service award from the city council. Public event, 200 attendees, local press officials. She'll give a speech about community values. Martinez smiled. You want to arrest her there. I want her to think she's won, I said. Let her stand in front of everyone and accept an award. Talk about integrity and standards. Then when she's finished, when everyone's watching, we show them who she really is. Morrison studied me. Public arrests are risky. Media circus potential confrontation. It's also justice, I said. 47 victims deserve to see her exposed publicly. The same way she humiliated them in front of neighbors, she threatened them in meetings. They deserve to watch her fall. Patterson nodded. Public payoff. Morrison thought, then nodded. All right, but we do it clean. Coordinated with local command, media briefed, backup staged. No errors. Agreed, I said. And between now and then we finish the case. Airtight. Every charge documented, every piece legally obtained, every witness notarized. When we walk her out, she won't have a legal leg to stand on. Sut, Morrison extended his hand. Let's get to work. We shook. The meeting broke up. I stayed behind looking at the board. The connections, the money flow, the stolen cars, the victims. All leading back to one person who thought power made her untouchable. 2 weeks. That's all she had left. The search warrant came through on Wednesday afternoon. Judge Carmichael signed off after reviewing our evidence package, surveillance photos, Dylan's criminal history, the stolen vehicle reports, and my own sworn statement about the Mustang's unlawful seizure. We had 48 hours to execute. Thursday morning, 0530 hours, we assembled 3 blocks from the garage. 2 unmarked units from Internal Affairs, 3 patrol cars from local PD, and a flatbed tow truck for vehicle recovery. Martinez briefed the team in the pre-dawn darkness. Location is a single-story commercial garage, 2 bay doors, and 1 side entrance. Suspect Dylan Hartwell may be inside. We have reason to believe multiple stolen vehicles are on the premises. This is a recovery operation, not a raid, but stay sharp. I stood back watching. Technically, I shouldn't be here. My car, my case, conflict of interest. But Morrison had cleared it. You've earned the right to see this through, he'd said. We rolled out at 0600. 3 vehicles approached from the east, 2 from the west, boxing in the location. The garage sat quietly in the gray morning light. No cars outside, no movement visible. Martinez and 2 officers approached the side door. She knocked hard. Police search warrant. Silence. She knocked again, louder. Dylan Hartwell. We have a warrant to search these premises. Open the door. Nothing. Martinez nodded to the officer with the battering ram. 1 hit. The door frame splintered. 2 hits. The lock gave way. They went in fast, weapons drawn, voices overlapping. Clear left, clear right, back room clear, garage bay 1 clear. 30 seconds later, Martinez appeared in the doorway. All clear. No one inside. But you need to see this. I followed her through the side entrance into the main garage bay. And there it was. My Mustang sat in the center under harsh fluorescent lights, hood-up tools scattered around it. But it wasn't alone. To the left, the Chevelle we'd seen on surveillance. To the right, the Camaro. Behind them, 2 more vehicles are under car covers. Martinez pulled the covers off. A 1968 Firebird and a 1972 Cuda. Both classics. Both were likely stolen. 5 vehicles, Patterson said, already photographing everything. All high-value targets. Williams was at a workbench in the corner going through papers. Registration documents, all fake. Dylan was preparing to sell these with fraudulent titles. I walked slowly toward the Mustang. The blue paint still gleamed, but the interior was partially disassembled. Dylan had been working on it, probably planning to strip the VIN and sell it as parts or reassemble it with a fake identity. I ran my hand along the hood, the metal cool under my palm. This car had been my father's pride, The last thing he gave me before he died, and they'd treated it like inventory. Martinez appeared beside me. "We'll get it home, boss." "I know," I said quietly. "Let's finish this." We spent the next 4 hours processing the scene. Every tool, every document, every piece of evidence was photographed, catalogued, and seized. Patterson found Dylan's laptop in a locked cabinet. Williams discovered a ledger with dates, vehicle descriptions, and sale prices. Over $200,000 in stolen vehicles moved through this garage in the past year alone. By 1100 hours, we had everything loaded. The 5 stolen cars were on flatbeds heading to the impound facility for evidence processing. The Mustang went on the last truck. I watched it roll away, knowing I'd get it back soon. Now we just needed Dylan. He hadn't been at the garage, but Williams tracked his phone. Last ping was at his mother's address. He's probably hiding there. We drove to Virginia's house, a large colonial in the nicest part of the neighborhood. 3 cruisers, lights off, parked out front. Martinez knocked. Virginia answered, still in a silk robe, coffee cup in hand. Her expression went from annoyed to shocked when she saw the uniforms. "What is this?" "We have a warrant for Dylan Hartwell's arrest," Martinez said, holding up the document. "Is he here?" Virginia's face hardened. "You can't just come to my home and—" "Ma'am, we can and we are. Is your son here?" A voice from upstairs. "Mom!" Dylan appeared at the top of the staircase wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. He saw us and froze. "Dylan Hartwell," Martinez called up. "You're under arrest for grand theft, auto-receiving stolen property, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Come down slowly with your hands visible." For a moment I thought he'd run. His eyes darted toward the back of the house. But he saw the officers positioned at the rear entrance through the window and realized he had nowhere to go. He came down slowly, hands raised. Martinez cuffed him at the bottom of the stairs while reading his Miranda rights. Virginia watched her face pale. "This is a mistake. My son hasn't done anything wrong. You're harassing us because of a simple HOA dispute." "Ma'am," I said, stepping forward. She recognized me. "This isn't about an HOA dispute. Your son is being arrested for operating a stolen vehicle ring out of a garage registered to your LLC. The same garage where my unlawfully seized Mustang was being stripped for parts." Her mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. Dylan was led out to a cruiser. As they put him in the back seat, he started talking immediately. "I want a deal. I'll tell you everything. It was her idea. All of it. The fees, the violations, the cars. She planned everything. I just did what she told me." Martinez closed the door and looked at me. Virginia was still standing in her doorway, frozen. She knew. Her son had just given her up. "We'll be in touch, Ms. Hartwell," I said. "Enjoy your Community Service Award next week. It'll be your last public appearance for a while." We drove away, leaving her standing there. Back at headquarters, Dylan was processed and placed in an interview room. Within 2 hours, he'd given a full confession. Names, dates, methods. How Virginia identified targets, created fake violations, and used her HOA authority to intimidate. How he arranged the thefts, hired Marcus and Kevin to play fake cops, and moved the vehicles through his garage. Everything. By evening, we had enough to arrest Virginia. But I made a call to Morrison. "Let's wait," I said. Until the gala. Until the gala. 9 more days. Let her think she was safe. Let her prepare her speech. Let her believe she'd gotten away with it. Then we'd show her the truth. Saturday evening arrived with clear skies. The community center ballroom glowed with string lights, 200 chairs facing a stage. City council members mingled. Press cameras were positioned. Residents in evening wear talked quietly, wine glasses in hand. Virginia Hartwell stood near the stage in a navy gown, smiling confident, like someone who believed she'd won. I sat in the back row, dark suit, no visible badge. Martinez is 3 rows ahead. Patterson and Williams are near the exits. 2 uniformed officers waited outside. Captain Morrison sat in the sound booth ready. At 7, the lights dimmed. The mayor took the stage. "Good evening. Thank you for joining our annual Community Service Awards, honoring those dedicated to making our neighborhoods better and safer." 3 awards came first. A teacher, a firefighter, a teenager. Each received applause and photos. Then the mayor held up a gold-framed certificate. "Our final award goes to someone who has served as HOA board president for 5 years, maintaining community standards. Please welcome Virginia Hartwell." Polite applause. Virginia climbed the steps, smile wide, taking the certificate. She stepped to the microphone. "Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for this honor." Her voice was smooth, practiced. "When I became board president, I committed to upholding the values that make our community special. Order, respect, accountability. These aren't just words. They're principles I've fought to protect every day." I watched from the back, jaw tight. "I believe rules exist for a reason," she continued. "When we all follow the same standards, everyone benefits. Some people resist, complain, and try to bend the system to personal convenience." Her eyes scanned the crowd. Was she thinking of me, of George? Of the 47 people she'd extorted? But I've never wavered. True leadership means standing firm even when difficult. That's integrity. The word hung in the air. Integrity. From a woman who'd stolen over $1 million and run a theft ring through her son. I glanced at Martinez. She nodded. "Time." Virginia wrapped up. "Thank you for this recognition. I promise to continue serving with the same dedication and commitment to what's right." She stepped back. Applause filled the room. The mayor moved to shake her hand. And I stood up. The movement caught attention. People turned. I walked down the center aisle, footsteps echoing. Virginia saw me. Her smile faltered, then returned, forced. I climbed onto the stage. The mayor looked confused. "Excuse me, this is..." "Mayor, my name is Commander Cole Brennan, Internal Affairs Division, Metro Police." I held up my badge. The room went silent. Virginia's face drained. "Ms. Hartwell," I said, turning to her, "you're under arrest." Her mouth opened. No sound. Martinez and Patterson moved through the crowd toward the stage. The charges: 8 counts of wire fraud, 6 counts of extortion, 5 counts of grand theft, auto 3 counts of money laundering, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit identity theft, and 1 count of operating a criminal enterprise. Martinez stepped onto the stage with handcuffs. Virginia found her voice. "This is absurd. You can't do this. This is harassment over a car." "Your son confessed," I said quietly. 9 days ago. Told us everything. How you identified targets, manufactured violations, and used fake enforcement to seize property. How did you move stolen vehicles through your LLC? How you laundered money offshore. We have his testimony. Your financial records, 47 victim statements, enough evidence for 15 to 25 years. The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, camera flashes. Virginia looked at the crowd. George Callahan sat in the 3rd row, tears streaming. Not sad tears. Relief. Martinez took Virginia's arm. "Turn around, please." "Get off me. I have rights. You can't arrest me like some common criminal." "You are a criminal," I said. "And these people deserve to see it. The same way you humiliated residents publicly, the same way you threatened neighbors, made 47 people feel powerless while stealing their money and dignity." Martinez moved again. This time, Virginia didn't resist. Handcuffs clicked. Patterson handed the warrant to the mayor. "Everything's legal, ma'am. Apologies for the disruption." The mayor nodded, stunned. Martinez read Miranda rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you." Virginia's legs wavered. Patterson steadied her. As they led her toward the stairs, she looked at me. "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "You will." They walked her down the aisle. The crowd parted. Some started clapping, slowly then building. Not celebrating spectacle, celebrating justice. I picked up the certificate from the podium, walked to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for interrupting, but you deserve to know the truth about who you've lived under for 5 years. If you've been affected by fraudulent fees or violations, contact Internal Affairs. We're here to help." I set the certificate down and left the stage. Morrison met me outside. "Clean arrest. Well done." "Not done yet. Still have to make the case. With Dylan's confession and your evidence gift-wrapped." I looked back through the windows. People talking, some crying, some hugging. A community held hostage for 5 years, finally free. "Justice served," Morrison said. "Justice served." I agreed. 6 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Virginia Hartwell sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her lawyer beside her, looking exhausted. The prosecution had presented overwhelming evidence over 3 days. Dylan's confession, financial records showing $1.2 million stolen, testimony from 12 victims, including George Callahan, forensic analysis of the 5 stolen vehicles, recordings of the fake cops admitting they'd been hired by Dylan. Everything is laid out in meticulous detail. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. On the count of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of extortion under color of law, guilty. On the count of grand theft auto, guilty. 8 guilty verdicts in total. Virginia's face remained frozen throughout. No tears, no emotion. Just the slow realization that everything she'd built was gone. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Judge Carmichael reviewed the victim impact statements, the financial damage, and the systematic nature of the crimes. Ms. Hartwell, you held a position of trust within your community. You were elected to serve your neighbors, to protect their interests, and maintain fair standards. Instead, you used that position as a weapon. You manufactured violations, extorted money, stole property, and destroyed lives. The harm you caused is incalculable. He sentenced her to 18 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for 12. Restitution of $1.2 million to be paid from the liquidation of all her assets. Dylan received 7 years for his role with credit for cooperation. Marcus Daniels and Kevin Koch, the fake cops, each got 5 years for impersonation and conspiracy. The HOA's bank accounts were frozen and audited. Every fraudulent fee collected over 5 years was identified and returned to victims. George Callahan received $42,000, the full amount Virginia had extorted from him. He cried when the check arrived, called me to say thank you. You gave me back more than money, he said, voice shaking. You gave me back my dignity. 3 other families were able to buy back homes they'd been forced to sell. The couple who'd lost their house to Virginia's pressure tactics moved back into their old neighborhood this time with a clean title and no threats hanging over them. The HOA itself was dissolved and reformed. New bylaws were written with input from residents, transparent financial reporting, clear appeals process, limits on fees and enforcement. George was elected interim president, a position he accepted on the condition that it remained volunteer only with no salary. We're here to serve, he said at the first new meeting, not to rule. I stood in my driveway on a Sunday morning in early November, 2 months after the gala. The Mustang sat in front of me, fully restored. I'd spent the past 6 weeks working on it every evening and weekend. Replaced the interior panels Dylan had removed. Fixed the wiring he'd disconnected. Detailed every inch until the blue paint gleamed like new. The engine purred perfectly, that deep V8 rumble my father had loved. I ran my hand along the hood, remembering the day he'd given me the keys. 23 years old, fresh out of the academy, thinking I was going to change the world. Take care of it, he'd said. This car represents integrity, son. It'll remind you why you do this job when things get hard. Things had gotten hard plenty of times over the years. Dirty cops I'd investigated. Corrupt officials who'd threatened my career. Cases that seemed impossible to win. But I'd never forgotten what he taught me. Integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about doing what's right even when it costs you. Especially when it costs you. Mrs. Patterson called over from across the street. Cole, looking good. I waved back. She'd been one of the witnesses who provided a statement, one of the neighbors who'd stood up when it mattered. The young couple 2 doors down walked past with their dog, stopped to admire the car. Glad you got it back, the husband said. We all are. Thanks, I said. Means a lot. They continued their walk. I stood there for a moment longer, watching the neighborhood come alive on a quiet Sunday. Kids riding bikes, families heading to brunch, normal life, the kind of life people deserve without someone abusing power over them. My phone buzzed. Text from Martinez. Drinks tonight, teams celebrating the close. I typed back, wouldn't miss it. Another text came through. This one is from an unknown number. I opened it. Mr. Brennan, you don't know me, but I live 3 towns over. Our HOA president has been doing the same things Virginia did. Fake fees, threats, intimidation. I saw the news coverage of your case. Can you help? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I saved the number and replied, yes, call internal affairs tomorrow. We'll open an investigation. Because that's what this was really about. Not just my car. Not just my neighborhood. It was about showing people that bullies don't win. Those systems can work when good people use them right. That standing up matters even when you're standing alone at first. I thought about the 47 victims who'd suffered in silence for years because they thought they had no choice. Thought about George keeping records in his filing cabinets, hoping someone would eventually care. Thought about every person who'd ever been told, "That's just how it is," by someone with a clipboard and a power complex. Sometimes all it takes is one person refusing to back down. One person who knows the rules, knows the law, and knows that justice isn't about revenge or violence. It's about using the system the way it was designed, holding people accountable, and protecting those who can't protect themselves. I climbed into the Mustang, started the engine, and backed out of the driveway. Took it for a drive through the neighborhood, then out onto the highway. Windows down, cool November air rushing in, that familiar engine sound filling my ears. My father would have been proud. Not just that I got the car back, but how I did it. By the book. With integrity. The way he taught me. When I got home an hour later, I parked in the driveway one more time. Locked it up. Stood looking at it for a moment. This car had been threatened, stolen, and nearly destroyed. But it survived. Came back stronger. Just like the community. Just like everyone who'd been victimized and found the courage to speak up. I walked inside, grabbed my jacket, and headed out to meet the team. Tomorrow there'd be another case. Another person who needed help. Another bully who thought they were untouchable. And I'd be ready. Because that's what we do. We stand up. We fight back. Not with fists or threats, but with truth, evidence, and the law. We prove that integrity matters, that justice isn't just a word, it's a choice we make every single day. If you've ever faced someone who abused their power, who made you feel small or helpless, remember this. You're not alone. The system can work. Documentation matters. Evidence matters. Speaking up matters. And sometimes standing your ground is the most powerful thing you can do. Don't let anyone steal your dignity. Don't let bullies win through intimidation. Know your rights, document everything, and never be afraid to hold people accountable. That's how communities heal. That's how justice wins. If this story resonated with you, if you believe in holding power accountable and standing up for what's right, consider supporting this channel. Every subscription, every share, every comment helps us reach people who need to hear these messages. Together we prove that karma isn't just luck. It's a choice. The choice to do what's right, even when it's hard. Welcome to Karma Clause, where justice always finds a way.